Rise and shine, YouTube. Today we're going to take a look at two different fingertip grip style mice that have hit the market from Darmoshark. Now, the starting one is going to be the M3 Micro. This guy right here is a little more narrow than the traditional fingertip grip style mice. It's going to be slightly on the heavier side for its shape, and we'll talk about that here in a second. But you can see that it is still very small, and it just follows a different kind of shape concept than the other traditional fingertip grip mice on the market. The second one we're going to look at is the M5. The M5 is going to follow suit with the traditional style, like the HSKs and all of that from G-Wolves, but this one is going to be definitely on the larger side of that style of a shape. So we're going to talk about the shapes, the clicks, the performance, the weight, all of that. So let's dive into it. Alrighty, you see three different mice on the pad here. You got the M2, the M3S Micro, and the M5. So the M2 sits at 116 long, the M3S sits at 106 long, and the M5 sits at 92 long. Shape-wise, all three of these mice were pretty good shapes, right? I will talk about the M3S Micro in a little bit, and yes, that is where I don't know, something about this mouse just didn't feel right with me. The weights on these are iffy. So the M2 sitting at 37 grams, which feels very, very good by the way. The M3S sits at a whopping 42 grams. We'll talk about that here in a minute. And the M5 sits at 38 grams. When it comes to weight, you want as light as possible without compromising the integrity of the sidewalls or the overall mouse in general, right? But you also want to have a lighter fingertip grip style mice because, well, when you're using these in your grip, you're really only placing your fingertips. Since your fingertips have a lot smaller muscles, you will fatigue faster the heavier that fingertip style mouse actually is. There you go. So let's talk about it. M3S Micro, 42 grams. Let's talk about the shape first. The shape is pretty good. It's a longer, more narrow feeling mouse, right, than the M5. Feels, I mean, they call it the cigar for a reason. I mean, it's long, narrow, bada bing, bada boom. There is really no kind of like side groove, right? That's more flat on the sides. The hump is very, very flat. I mean, you can take a look here. The hump on the back end of the M5 is definitely taller than the M3S, but it doesn't mean that the M3S is a bad shape at all. If you like kind of like the longer style mice, it feels pretty good in hand, right? I wish that the hump was just slightly taller, and I wish the mouse was actually a little more wide because it just feels a little off to me, especially with the weight being 42 grams. That's my biggest issue with this thing. 42 grams for a fingertip style mice is too heavy. I know they want to start using 8K with their mice, and they use larger batteries. I mean, I'd rather have a smaller battery to cut the weight down and just plug the mouse in when I need to, because lighter weight on both the M3S and the M5 would make these much, much better to use in game, 100%. Like, I'll stand by that all day long. Shape, pretty good. Weight, pretty bad. The weight and shape on the M5. So this follows in suit with more of the HSK style mouse, where it has a taller hump, slanted angle here. But this comes in a wider kind of shape profile than the HSKs, the HTR, even that Keychron Mini, the fingertip that I've used. And honestly, I do prefer this shape even over the M3S because it is wider. The sides are slightly taller, and it is more comfortable to me personally than the M3S, the HTR, and the Keychron fingertip mouse. So it's more comfortable. I don't have an issue with the M5 with any cramping, right? I have more freedom to place my fingers on the mouse where I want to, where I need to, and honestly, I like it, right? I like this. Like I said, I like this more than the M3 Micro all day long. The weight being 38 grams, it is definitely a lot more balanced than the M3S, right? But in my opinion, it's honestly still going to be a little too heavy. 38 grams, this needs to be around 35, 32 grams, right? Even that would feel much, much better. But it is what it is. Like I said, they want to do 8K. They're using a little larger batteries. Whatever. So, weights, still not where they need to be. Shapes are pretty damn good. M5 being my favorite versus the M3S. Now, let's talk about QC. QC on these mice are spot on. I have no issues with QC. Side flex, none. Zero. There's no side flex on any of these mice. There's no creaking, no cracking, nothing like that, right? I like that. I like having a solid mouse in hand. Scroll wheel has very defined steps. It's still pretty smooth, and you can spam them when you need to. Side buttons, there really isn't any pre-travel or post-travel, no matter where you click them. Even on the M3S, nice, crisp, clicky. And the main buttons don't really have any side wobble, and when you're actually using them, there is no grinding on the clicks, especially if one of those, if you press a little more firmly. I don't have any click grind on any of my copies. So QC feels damn good, right? I'm actually very impressed with the QC on these. Feels good because my M2 QCs all have been pretty bad, but I hope they do a better job with the Pro version because I'm very interested in that mouse as well. Let's talk about the skates. The skates on these guys, the stock skates, were not amazing, but they weren't terrible, right? I used them more on the glaze than cloth because they felt more free and open on the glaze. But on cloth, especially the Raiden that you see here, and the behind me, you see the Infinity Mice Speed V2 in mid. The stock skates had a slight little tug to them that I just didn't like. I like that openness. I like that freedom. I like that kind of as less tug as I can get. I like it. It's the way I use the mice. It's the way I like to game, right? I don't like control pads. I don't like any of that. But stock skates weren't terrible, but they weren't the greatest. I did swap out for Jade Speeds on the M3S Micro, being a heavier kind of fingertip mice. I wanted faster skates to make it feel more open, and just, I don't know. I find the Jade Speed dots to make this mouse a little more enjoyable than it is. There you go. I used the Obsidians on the M5. Honestly, Obsidians on glass aren't super slow. They're still free. They're still open. Feels damn good. So, as you see, I mean, we talked about the weights. Weights need to be better. We talked about the shapes. The shapes are pretty damn good. Talk about the skates. Stock skates were eh. Would I recommend these mice? I mean, honestly, I would recommend the M5 all day long over the M3S. I like the shape profile more. I like the weight more. I like how it feels in hand more. And I just like how I performed on it more. I mean, it is what it is. If I were to choose a fingertip style mouse, it would be the M5 all day long. Performance-wise, before we end the review, I had no issues, right? I had no issues with the M3S, right? When out of the box, I did feel like the M5 had a little bit of a DPI deviation, right? Where you're getting a little quicker DPI than what you wanted. They did provide me with the updated 8K firmware that I've been testing for them. And honestly, it made the mouse even better. It felt more spot on than out of the box with this firmware update. So you guys will have your hands on it once they release it. So keep an eye on that. But performance after the 8K firmware, I mean, this mouse will be a fan favorite within the fingertip community. Even if the weight is not where it's at, if you like modding the mice, you can obviously swap out the battery for a lower weight battery or a lower mAh battery, and it would be even better of a mouse. Both of these mice come in at $89.99. They're not $160 mice. They're not going too crazy with the price on them. So price-wise, it's pretty good, right? I mean, I purchased this one myself on Metkeys. They sent out the micro, right? I mean, they're good. The M3S is not the greatest. The M5 is a very good mouse. I would highly recommend, if you like fingertip, to actually try it out. Pick one up, try it out. Throw it around, do whatever you need to do. That's it. You got two fingertip mice from Darmoshark. It's their first release of a fingertip style mouse. And while one isn't where it needs to be at, the other one, the M5, is definitely a good mouse. I would recommend this. So, if you liked this review, give it a thumbs up, hit that sub button, and you know what? Keep killing it. God bless, and we'll see you for the next one.